Hey everyone, today I'm working on an interview challenge. This one comes from HackerRank and it's called Diagonal Difference. So in this challenge we're given a square matrix and asked to calculate the absolute difference between the sums of its diagonals. So for example, this square matrix is shown right here. The left to right diagonal is 1, 5, 9. And then the right to left is 3, 5, 9. So we would want to sum those up. The first one gives you 15, the second one gives you 17, and then return the absolute difference of subtracting those two, which is 2. So the working example down here, we're going to see this input matrix or sort of nested arrays in JavaScript. So we would have 11, 5, negative 12 would be the first diagonal, should give you 4, and then 4, 5, and 10 is 19, so you subtract those two things and the absolute difference is 15. That's what we'll be looking for here. So getting into coding this out, I know I'm going to need two variables to store the sums as I iterate through the array. So I've got diagonal 1 and diagonal 2. And then I'll just set up a for loop. I equals 0, I less than. And I believe I can just do array.length because the number of rows and columns should be the same for each input. I think they mentioned it's a square matrix, so the rows and columns will match. So if I just do array.length, that should work for any input. All right, so let's start with the first diagonal here. Now I think this one should be pretty easy because I actually don't need a separate pointer because, for example, if we're looking at this element right here, this is at the 0 index for both the column and the row. So I can actually just use my I iterator here for both of those points. So diag1 plus equals the array at the index of I and then at the index of I. So as this continues to iterate and I increments up, it'll be 0, 0, and then 1, 1, and then 2, 2, and so on and so forth if you get a larger input on some of these tests. So I think that should work for summing up the left to right diagonal. Now, how do I want to do the right to left? So the first part of this stays the same, array at I. That'll work our way down through the rows, but now I need to go from the end of each of these rows working backwards. So I'm going to need another pointer to do that. So I'm just going to call this variable pointer and set it equal to the array.length minus 1. So that'll be at this index right here. So I want this to be diag2 plus equals array at the index of I and then at the index of pointer. So I'm grabbing that last element, and then we need to sort of manually decrement that pointer so it will work backwards here. So if I've done that correctly, that should be summing the two diagonals correctly. So I believe I have diag1 and diag2. And then the last step should be pretty easy. Just return the absolute value of their difference. So subtract the two of them in here. So let's go ahead and just run this once. We'll see if it's working with this initial sample input. Should be getting 15. Yeah, it looks good for the sample test case. Let's submit it. Always takes just a minute or so to run here. Looking good so far. Just waiting for the banner to pop up here. Yeah, looks good. Okay. So we've got a working solution here. Hopefully that makes sense. Iterating through the array only once, which is nice. It doesn't have to be a nested for loop or anything like that. We're essentially using 2 pointers, one to go from left to right and one to go from right to left as we go down the rows. We can sum up each diagonal and then return the absolute value of their difference down here. If you have any questions, thoughts, feedback from me, if you think there's a better, more optimal way to do this, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. And other than that, I hope you found this video helpful.